The American Apparel and Footwear Association is the largest trade association in the United States, representing apparel and footwear brands, retailers, wholesale companies, and the supplier community, all of whom produce and distribute product across global markets. AAFA focuses in 3 core areas critical to the business operations of our members. They are brand protection, supply chain and manufacturing, and trade. Under our mission of advocacy that fits, AAFA provides members with expertise across these disciplines, including personalized casework and educational programming, such as today's webinar, to help members navigate the complex global marketplace. Members gain unparalleled access to resources, tools, and special interest committees that deliver exclusive insights on regulation, on compliance, on policy, as well as bringing together the apparel and footwear community for business exchange and collaboration opportunities. So just 2 quick housekeeping notes, and then we're going to get started with the program. First, if you have questions during the presentation, and we absolutely encourage everyone to jump right in, please type them into the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel. We will bring them up during the Q&A segment following the conclusion of the prepared remarks. Also to share, we are recording today's webinar, and the webinar, along with the presentation deck, will be available on AAFA's Learning Center. Finally, if you experience any technical difficulties throughout the program today, please contact the GoToWebinar support at 1-800-263-6317. So let's get started. It's my great pleasure to have today's discussion sponsored by AAFA member Visionette. I'm delighted to introduce our presenters, who include Deepak Das, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Sales at Visionette, Saad Mahmood, who is the VP of Data Management and Analytics at Visionette, and also joining them, John Kovac, Principal at JTM Advisors and Head of IT at Coldwater Creek. The 3 key learning objectives today will cover why implementation of a data platform should be a priority today, how to leverage scalable and affordable cloud technologies for a data platform, and key business use cases for marketing, sales, and merchandising functions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deepak, who is going to start the program. Deepak, please take over the wheel.
Thank you, Susan. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sounds great. Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you, Susan, and thank you all the AAFA members and others from the fashion, apparel, and footwear industry for joining us today on this webinar. We hope that it'll be quite the informative session for you all. We appreciate your presence here, and we hope to make it very informative. My name is Deepak Das, and I head up marketing and product sales at Visionette, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panel members today. First, I'd like to introduce John Kovac, who is the principal at JTM Advisors LLC. But John is also currently heading information technology at Coldwater Creek and is focused on their IT roadmap and maturing their processes and the organization. He's an accomplished, results-oriented IT systems executive with over 20+ years of success in delivering systems and technology solutions to support business strategies. He comes with an extensive industry experience in the global apparel, fashion, and footwear industry, and brings a tremendous background and knowledge in retail, omni-channel solutioning, and is the driving force in leveraging advanced technology and modern data platform solutions to bring about transformation. Welcome, John. And on our next panel member is Asad Mahmood, who's the VP of Data Management and Analytics at Visionette. And Asad brings over nearly two decades of leadership experience in the CPG, retail, and other industry domains. In his current role as the lead expert on data management and analytics, he helps modern IT organizations establish data platforms and best-in-class BI practices. He's a trusted advisor to many CIOs and IT teams who rely on his expertise in crafting data management strategy, data warehousing, enterprise BI, and advanced analytics solutions. He has also architected products and solutions in this space and is a sought-after thought leader in this space. Welcome, Asad. Well, first, I'd like to give you a quick intro to our company. VisionNet is a global technology consulting services and provider of software, IP, and industry accelerators. We play a vital role in the fashion, apparel, and retail industry and provide services to a wide variety of global fashion and apparel brands. We are headquartered in New Jersey, halfway between New York and Philadelphia, and have locations globally, and have been in business for over 23 plus years. We have a wide variety of partnerships with companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, Adobe, Amazon, to list a few, and we have a wide variety and the highest level of certifications for each of these partners. Our main industry focus areas are fashion, apparel, CPG, supply chain, and we also have a banking and financial services arm as well, as you can see. From a competency perspective, we offer our customers a complete end-to-end capability in helping them in their transformation journeys. Our practice areas range from cloud enablement and modernizations to business solutions such as CRM and ERP, retail and commerce practice, and data and AI practice as well, enterprise integration capability. And we also help our customers with automation internally, as well as offer managed services to support our customers beyond initial deployments. So now that we're done with the introduction, let's move to the more important subject on hand today, right? Data. And data has become the most important asset of any company. It's like the new oil in this modern and networked world with ubiquitous connectivity and an ever-informed consumer. It is important to leverage the hidden insights of data, right? And what's happening with, next slide, please. You know, this is a graphic source from Microsoft, and it presents a picture of increasing complexity of data. Data is increasing along three axes of volume, velocity, and variability, right? With this, I'm going to, bring in John and ask him, given your background and experience in the fashion and apparel industry, what would you characterize as the challenges of data within an organization? John?
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. When I think about these last two slides, there's really several sources for these challenges from a retailer's perspective. Obviously, the sheer volume of data that's now coming in from an increasing number of sources, whether it's the source systems themselves or social media, et cetera, the management of that's become increasingly complex. Along with the need to create ever-evolving views into what actionable steps we might be able to derive from all this data from an operational standpoint. When you think about evolving omni-channel capabilities and the need to be able to see the impact of decision-making across the customer journey in real time, the ability to manage that and cull out those views are very important. And what happens is, in response to these pressures, groups within the organization form to try to provide this data as quickly as possible. But invariably, this results in creating a lot of noise due to the inconsistent use of data, resulting in, in many cases, multiple versions of the truth. As an editorial statement, I find it ironic how tightly we control system access and we test implementation of systems and ongoing systems, yet in generation of reports and in the trying to get data to the business as quickly as possible, we're relying on Excel spreadsheets and things like that aren't really necessarily 100% of the truth. So just something that we need to be able to keep in mind. Hope that helps.
Good. Yep. Thanks, John. Thank you for that. One of the things that's changing is, the data ecosystem itself. Next slide, please. So just jump. Yeah. So let's talk about this. I want to bring this up, right? So from what we have understood from the Gartners and the Forresters of the world, again, there's a lot of challenges in the enterprise today. There's because of legacy platforms and legacy systems, there's silos of knowledge that have been created, and then there's silos of capability within the organization, whether it's functional or technical, and then silos of capacity. How many people can you bring on board, and what's their expertise level, and silos of control, who's exerting control, with whether it's a functional group within the organization or whether it's a IT group within the organization. And what this is leading to is the inability to have data visibility across the organization and orchestrate that data in a holistic manner, and then be able to leverage that data across the organization, whether it's on the business end, sales channel, targeting and personalization from a marketing perspective, and also be able to get amplified or better results and better outcomes from their business processes. And when I think about that and I look at the organizational challenges, what I see is there's always some sort of friction within the organization. And I'm going to bring Asad in because he has seen a lot of these from an organizational perspective. So Asad, can you step in here to answer, what do you see as the main organizational challenges to establishing a data-driven culture within an organization?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Deepak. And the key challenge which we face is less on the technology side and more on the kind of a status quo which is prevalent around descriptive reporting. Most of the organizations, they think that they are generating the reports, they are generating the analytics out of it, and they are good with it. And then there are some business savvy kind of analysts who try to dig deeper, try to find answers for a little bit more difficult questions. But the most of the time which they spend is around collecting the data, normalizing it, and then putting into a format where they can actually try to curate more appropriately. As a IT organization or IT leadership, what is needed is to actually make these things easier. For those analysts, they don't have to spend too much time on collecting the information or trying to mine the information. Rather, they should be spending time on analyzing it and then taking some actions and see what's the reaction is coming out of those things. Same as where it needs to be once your trusted data is available, when you make these things more readily available for business users, what I have seen in my experience is that they then start coming up with so many different questions and so many different scenarios which actually help transform the business for the better. Previously, there is a mind lock that, okay, if I will go to the IT, if I will go there, and I will say okay, I want to generate health of inventory, let's say. And IT says that, okay, oh, this is going to be a big process, so give us 3 months and we will get back to you with a report which will show you health of inventory. So if it is going to take 3 months, they might not try it. And if they want to try it, they just try to do it themselves. But imagine if the IT response is that, oh, you want this, here are all the ingredients to it, and you can click through these different elements and you can see that in minutes. Now imagine that the questions which they will be asking and the new deeper insights which the business will be generating around the data. So that's the major challenge which I see. And if you remove those, then the organization is ready to actually step forward and become ahead of the curve.
Got it. Thanks, Asad. Thanks for that. So let's, go to the next, what are the barriers to adoption? And this is the perfect setup, right, for the age-old conundrum of build versus buy. Many a times we see organizations kind of grappling with this, and each of these scenarios present their own unique challenges. And I'm going to, turn to John here and pose this question. John, most organizations, are constantly grappling with this question of build versus buy. From your previous experience, would you please share with us your viewpoint on the pros and cons of it and how it applies to today's world, and what we can learn from our previous, experiences?
Right. First, thanks for stealing my age-old conundrum line. Very nice. So, when you take a look at this slide, they've got good overview of the challenges for whether you build or buy. In my experience, while building was traditionally one of the only options, we've really passed a tipping point from a technological capability standpoint, where it's actually much more effective to implement a quote unquote out of the box solution than to start from scratch. For instance, if I'm going to build, I need to make sure I've got a perfect understanding of all of my data. I need to be able to have experts who know how to merge and create actionable information out of that data. Not traditionally something that you have across the board, but usually in subject matter silos. So you've got system administrators who or analysts or developers who know your sourcing system, or they know your PLM system, or they know your financial systems, right? But the focus isn't across the ubiquitous data field. If I have an opportunity to buy, what that allows me to leverage is, the expertise that comes with it, a proven data model that links all these disparate data sources, the technology development that allows me to now leverage the consolidation of data into a modern data management platform. And things like templated queries and reports that I can use more easily if I can modify them to fit my specific business need to save time. It's frankly how we got onto this discussion with VSI and myself was, work at where I am now at Coldwater. We were looking at a build versus buy, and the need to be able to bring together all of the disparate data sources, so I'll call it marketing data that's outside of our systems, but then all of the transactional data, the PLM data, et cetera, into a modern data management platform that I can leverage, some canned operational reports that can be easily modified. It's allowed us to completely jumpstart our process here. So, while I like the control of the traditional build, the belief system around buy is something that I think we should all consider strongly.
Thanks, John. Thank you for that. I think I'm going to, do one thing here and take this a step further, right? So the one thing that's being asked of companies, or next slide, please, of companies, and is that many research organizations, like I mentioned before, the Gartners and the Forresters of the world, profess that having visibility across the entire supply chain from supplier to customer is needed, right? And what they're pivoting towards is that they need to have this, whether they're a manufacturer, a wholesaler, a retailer, or an omni-channel brick and mortar, type of business, that not every business can afford to build up a modern data platform like this. So the question is, could you extend and share with us your viewpoint on this need to have visibility across the entire supply chain, and then what should the companies as they as you go from the smaller type of companies to the larger enterprise organizations, how do they vary this? Can you provide some insights into that, John?
Well, sure. I mean, think about it. This slide really represents what we're living. As you take a look across all of these functional areas within the company, the ability to understand and bring together interdependent data points, like the customer's placed an order, so now I've created that demand, and that demand is going to have an impact on my warehouse inventory, and understanding where is that inventory and being able to source it through my order management system to the most effective source, whether it's a store or whether it's from a warehouse, and then to be able to take that demand and go against my plans, and have I purchased enough inventory, or do I have a uptick in how quickly that inventory is being sold, so that I need to potentially replenish faster. The interdependency of all of these really turned kind of the traditional system management on its head, where you used to work in optimizing data and functions within your POS and within your DOM and within your warehouse and within your PLM. Now it's about, yes, doing that, but also pulling the data out that is integrated and interdependent so that we can make actionable decisions more quickly. Omni-channel is, really driving most of this, because if we've got, the ability to purchase from anywhere at any time, and then be able to make sure that our inventory gets replenished appropriately and that our future plans get updated appropriately, it's really evolved how we work. And having the ability to pull the data out of these systems into a enterprise data platform, or having an effective data model that brings it all together with unstructured and structured data has become a necessity as opposed to a nice to have. And I would say that the technology tipping point that I referred to earlier is actually making it more ubiquitous to smaller companies, or more available. Right? Traditionally, you had to be a large company that was able to invest in bringing all the data together and make it actionable. And that was more typically a build scenario. But with the options that exist now to implement products to be able to bring that all together and report against, it's really making it available to I'll call it the common man, so that they can be more effective. I hope that helps.
Got it. Yes, it does. And I'm actually going to extend the question a little bit. In this, there are multiple functional teams involved in organizations, as well as the IT organization. Now, each of them have a different viewpoint in terms of achieving some kind of a workflow versus the ability to get that done in a meaningful manner. Do you find that there's friction in organizations that may sort of sometimes drive some challenges in achieving this, because this does require cooperation across the entire organization?
Well, what it requires is to have an effective EDP. You've got your data analysts who have full knowledge of how everything works, and to be able to partner with the specific source system experts to understand what needs to be brought in and how it gets brought in, and that it gets used properly, is, I think, the organizational challenge. I'm an old data model guy, so when I think about kind of the perfection that you can achieve through a data model, you're really trying to do that with EDP. And it's not about taking away responsibility, but it's about, just helping everybody understand that by sharing it, we'll all be more effective. But there is that role that requires, that centralization of knowledge on how everything fits together. And it really helps to overcome a lot of the silos and inefficiencies created by just having that particular system expertise.
Got it. Thanks, John. All right, so let's jump to the next slide here. All right, that worked. So, this brings us, this is the ultimate conceptual modern data platform, right? A magical funnel of data processing prowess that, consumes all this data and leads to insights, right? What defines this magic enterprise data platform? There's a whole lot, like we saw in the velocity, volume, and variability of data. There's a lot of social noise and social data being created. There's also a lot of enterprise data from your various different systems, whether it's ERP, CRM, OMS, WMS, right? Systems that are part and parcel of delivering more intelligence. And then there's all the channel data, your transactions, and what customers are doing, where are they buying, where are they seeing, where are they seeking information from, and where are they buying, and how do they, look at different customer or their different vendors and so on. And so the idea is that it all comes into an EDP platform, and and all this happens magically, whether it's visualization, reporting, pre-built data model, connectors, templates, and all of that. It is complex. However, I'm going to reel in Asad here to sort of help guide us in this particular thing and help us understand the framework for a modern EDP, right? And the basic elements of how it should be built up and executed. Asad, you've done a lot of these over the years. You've seen it transform from legacy platforms to the more modern capabilities. Can you sort of spend a few minutes and guide us through this process and help us understand, what a modern enterprise data platform is and what the framework for such a thing should be?
Yeah, definitely. So let's start with the basic, like when we say the modern enterprise data platform, the real objective with that is that utilize the technologies which are now available readily to full potential. Like don't stay in the legacy with all that, which was like 10 years, 15 years ago, a very good thing to have, like your conventional data warehouse, your conventional reporting engine. But when you are building a strategy around modern data platform, one integral piece of that is utilizing the cloud in better kind of a manner where you are seeing the potential of the cloud rather than just creating new VMs over there and then creating servers. So ideally, it should be scalable. Which comes like inherent to the cloud side of things, less upfront cost, and the advanced services which are built on top of it, utilize them. Don't try to stay away from it. That because many times, like what we have seen, like we have done implementation with AWS or Azure or GCP, and their native services add a lot of value. And don't shy away from them, and don't try to build something which is like already there. The second piece is that when we build a data lake and we are bringing in all the data from different source systems, the buzzword around data lake and marketing tells you that, oh, just bring everything. You do not need to format, you do not need to design anything, just put it over there, and when you want to use it, then figure out what you need to do. What we have seen with all of those initiatives almost is that they start becoming data swamps rather than data lakes, where getting the data out or information out of those systems become the same problem where you are spending a lot of time on collecting, normalizing, or understanding the information that where it exists and how to make sense of it. So design a data lake, like from the get-go. Do not just start pushing the data and think that, okay, we will design it when we have a scenario. Machine learning and AI, it was something which was some advanced organizations were doing 10 years, 15 years ago, like especially in the retail sector and other niche industries. But now they are, just as John also mentioned, they're readily available. Like you can actually start and build your models with very less knowledge around data science. But again, not saying that data science is not important, but you can start that journey. You do not need to wait for it. And what we encourage and what we design our modern data platform is around how to fully utilize ML and AI capabilities which are available around the data. And the other piece is that don't consider this data platform only for reporting analytics or for AI ML. Consider that data becomes central for your organization. This platform need to serve any data related need for the whole organization. Whether it is for analytics and data warehouse becomes a consumer for it, it's a machine learning, but other application you can, if you have seen, like most of the time we are now getting into data-driven intelligent apps. Those apps cannot be optimally built or designed if you don't have an enterprise data platform which can support them. Otherwise, the cost of implementation will again go sky high, but with a proper built data platform, data-driven apps become easier to achieve and very quick to implement. And then when you are building around it, the last piece is that design your code, design your components in a way that you do not have to do it every time a new entity, a new source system is added. Most of the things should be configurable, and with very less and less code development, you should be able to add add new data elements and generate new insights onto that data. So in nutshell, these are the few key points or basic elements which we need to consider when we are building a modern data platform. They have their own individual details, but we can obviously discuss them a later time.
Right. Thanks, Sid. But I'm going to actually ask you to extend that, I think, a little bit. And the reason for establishing a data lake and have all the data is, there have been situations in the past, per our experience, where you can't get the causal information for any trends that you're seeing or visualizations that you're seeing unless you have all the data and all the trigger points. Can you sort of maybe extend a little bit just and explain a couple of key points on why it's important to have all of this data in a data lake so that we can actually realize what the trigger factors are?
Yeah, and I think that it is right now, like with where the technology and industry is, it is no longer optional for the organizations. My thought is that if you are still in the conventional mode and if you're conventional warehousing, reporting, and utilization of data, then you might already be behind the curve and you might already be going down. We have customers in both kind of segments where some of the places where they are in conventional mode, and even with the advice, they think that, okay, they don't have budgets or they don't have appetite for innovation right now. Most of the time, those customers are like in the segment which are declining in the industry. And then the customers are which are making data and data platform as a central part of their strategy, and every initiative is actually coming around the data platform. Those organizations, we see immense growth and immense response and actually advancement into their sector. We have seen, like you guys see brick and mortar kind of dying down because of the online challenge and everything. We have seen customers who are heavily brick and mortar, 90% of their business comes from brick and mortar, and they are achieving like exponential growth year over year. And the core reason for that is that their most in the transformative initiatives in 2019 and 2018 were all data driven. So this is something which once you give the power of data to business subject matter experts, they generate the value which is unprecedented for the business. So it is not something which someone from outside will be doing for them. Business users themselves will be generating the value which the business leaders and CEOs or board of the organization might not have seen before, by just making data a central piece of their strategy and execution. And just on my thought, like what I would like to see is, John, your viewpoint on this. How do you think that modern data platform play a central role, or why a company should be going towards that?
Well, I think it's the theme we've been espousing, all through these slides, right? It's the fact that we've already started to pivot around just being siloed against specific source systems and needing to bring the data in so that we can look across the entire customer journey and what the impact is of that going forward. Our adoption of a data lake, which allows us to bring in multiple sources of data as opposed to having to go out to specific systems, is extremely powerful. And one of the things I'd say is that the ability that it gives us to leverage that for opportunities that go outside of what we may have originally planned. I use an example. We were looking at implementing a CRM system, and as we're taking a look at those capabilities and how we provide those capabilities to the store, et cetera, we realized that we actually had all of the data that we needed within the data lake. And that it was really just a matter of adding a couple of functional screens at the POS or on the tablet to allow us to get that. So right away we've obviated the need to have to implement yet another system, because now that we've got the data lake and it's being sourced from all of our disparate systems, and like you said, it's not everything, it's what is appropriate to source out of those systems, but now with some tweaks we have a whole new systems capability without actually having to implement that system.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks, Asad, for those responses, and that really helps. So let's kind of move to the end here, and before I end this session, our session, and open it up for Q&A from the audience, I just want to summarize our session on what a modern enterprise data platform should help us achieve, right? From what I've heard, we should achieve, to break through all the functional and operational silos by bringing all the data into one common area so as to be able to achieve what we want in terms of end-to-end visibility. And then the need for a single version of truth across the organization. Constantly, as an organization, many of them are battling, what generally defined as the truth, whether it's in terms of customer data, whether it's in terms of a specific enterprise data, not having the ability to have a 360-degree view of the customer, and so on. And to start small and build towards a truly data-driven organization, because in this day and age, we actually have the capabilities, whether it's cloud, whether it's open source capabilities, or other things that are available out there, and companies that have built enterprise data platforms. So there are tools and technologies and resources available out there to be able to do this. So before we open it up to the audience, do you have any closing thoughts on this, John and Asad, just from an organizational perspective or an enterprise perspective, and what they should be looking at going into 2020?
Yeah, Asad, if you don't mind, it was funny when we were preparing for this webinar, I was thinking how, we're kind of where we were a few years ago when we were thinking about microservices and APIs and, using that technology to be able to, leverage object-oriented development and everything else. And, so imagine today not having those capabilities in your system tool belt. And I feel like we're kind of at the same point as we were a couple of years ago with those technologies and approaches, with NDM and EDP and data lakes, et cetera, where, 2 years from now, we're going to look back and we'll be surprised when somebody doesn't have it in place. Right. So it's not necessarily technology for technology's sake, but I think there's a real example of how, early adoption will help you leverage these capabilities.
All right, thanks, John. Asad, anything? Close it up.
Just to again on John, as he said, the idea with this is that once you are a data-driven organization, what we have seen is that the business users generate so much demand around all kind of advanced initiatives. There shouldn't be only the AI ML, but there are so much to do with the data once you have it, that it becomes more and more visible that the value centralized and enterprise data strategy brings to the table is something which businesses have not realized before, but now it is not an optional piece. If you don't have it, then you are going to lag behind into the competition.
Got it. Thanks, Asad. Thanks, John. And one of the things that we're just going to do before we open it up for the audience for questions is I just wanted to also say that as an AAFA member, we are a proud sponsor of the Executive Summit 2020 that's coming up next week in Washington, D.C., organized by the American Apparel Footwear Association, obviously. So we'll be there, and we'll have experts on hand to talk about data platforms, the fashion apparel industry and what we have done to enhance the supply chain capability, end-to-end visibility, and so on in the fashion and apparel industry. So please do stop by and talk to us. One of our industry experts will be there to talk as well. Madison, I'm going to hand it over to you for the Q&A portion of this.
Great. Thank you, Deepak, John, and Asad. We will go ahead and take some questions now. Just as a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel. We will address as many questions as possible, and the speaker will respond via email to any unanswered questions after the webinar. So just to kick off the questions, we have one here. If you have recently adopted a centralized enterprise data platform, what challenges did you encounter and how did you overcome those?
All right, this is John. I'll take that. So there's a couple areas. I think the first major area is just related to trust, right? The technical challenges have become easier to overcome and to deal with. What's harder is business's ability to be able to give up control and trust the model. You know, this is my second data lake experience now, and in both cases, it was, you know, our end users are very used to having tight knowledge of how specific data is used, and when it gets merged into a data lake and you start to commingle it and combine it to create views and reports and actionable data, then they seem to keep wanting to go back and test it time and time again, yet all the data is actually coming out of those original systems, right? It's just a different view. So it's something that you need to be prepared to help the business understand and overcome. The second thing I think that I keep an eye out for is to build the internal expertise, right? You have to understand whether your technicians have the aptitude to pivot and take a look at data in this commingled way under an EDP. You know, some technicians will have that aptitude, or they'll be waiting for it. Others you may have to require training. Others may not have the ability. So you just need to be able to understand that effectively. You know, and then there's just the technical tool set, you know, and how do you make sure that you're using it effectively going forward, and, you know, controlling demand in a way. So, you know, you have to make sure you have some portfolio management skills available, because all of a sudden you're going to get, and I think Asad even mentioned this, there's going to be a lot of pent up demand for information. And so being able to prioritize that in an effective way is really helpful. Hope that helps.
Great, thank you. Next question. What are the core differences in conventional data warehousing versus modern data platforms?
Okay, so this is Asad. I will take this. So in the basic term, like your conventional data warehouse and conventional reporting were kind of reactive to everything what is happening on the business. So that means, like, in many times, like with most of the organization, it is like one day behind. When we talk about modern data platform, like one is that, okay, you are getting the data for intelligence like in near real time. And then the second is that it is not just the reactive reporting, more of the AI ML techniques actually make it more possible for generate the predictive insights and prescriptive insights for your actions, which you can take in near real time. So this is the core where in the conventional data warehouses, which were built to support like those descriptive reports, they cannot cope with this kind of demand. And when you utilize, just to give you an example, like I was working with one of our organizations. There's a $1 billion plus dollar revenue organization, but their whole planning was running on Excel. So you can imagine, like, obviously they are still doing good. They were still doing good, but it's the potential which they are missing on. They don't realize that until we developed a machine learning model which can actually help them with forecast, which was up till 95% to 90% accurate for the next whole year. And once you have that level of predictability into your system, the doorway in front of CFO, knowing that, okay, what is going to be his more predictive budgets, in terms of marketing teams, that, okay, what are they looking at, what they need to push for, the field planning, like the team, that, okay, how we should be setting up the incentives and pushing our fields to achieve more than this, what we are already seeing based on the trends, that what we are going to achieve. That brings so much movement into the business, which was not previously there. Previously, everything was reactive. Like, okay, what were your sales? You add a percentage to your Excel, and you say that my next year plans, and there are some mathematical formulas are going to be around this. But now everyone is looking for how to capitalize off this level of predictability, which they now see for the next whole year, and how to achieve and push more for their business organization as well as everyone else. So this is something which with the conventional data warehouses was unheard of. And the modern data platforms actually bring these things together, where you can actually achieve as well as modernize and expedite the business initiatives around these transformative kind of initiatives and things.
Great. It looks like we've answered all of our questions today. Thank you again to Deepak, John, and Assad for this informative session, and to Visionette for sponsoring today's program. Everyone will receive an email with links to the PDF and recording of today's presentation. Be sure to visit the AAFA Learning Center to view this webinar recording and all of our other recordings. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you all. Thanks for attending.